Ladies and gentlemen, officially, please give a warm welcome to Christian Minson.
Okay? Yeah. Thank you, Greg.
All right, thanks. I think we all set.
Perfect.
All right, let's give another round of applause to Gregg for bringing me here. Thank you. And then another round of applause for all of you for making it to the New Age Adult Slumber Party. By a show of hands, let me see who's ready to move some emotional energy. All right, good. Who would like more physical vitality in their life too, just out of curiosity? And who would like to be more connected to their spirit? No, looks like across the board unanimous. Well, welcome officially to this segment. My name is Christian Minson, as Gregg announced. I am a transformational breath facilitator for the last 12 years, a senior trainer with the Transformational Breath Foundation. I've traveled all over the world to give programs like this, longer, week-long programs, weekends, workshops, all that. I currently reside and work in Costa Rica at a retreat called Rhythmia. It specializes in plant medicine and breathwork as the two hallmarks to the amazing transformation that takes place at that place. So I definitely encourage you to come down there. Other interesting tidbits of information about me: I was a monk for 10 years of my life. I usually mention this in the context of breathwork because the meditation techniques that we practiced, on average of about 4.5 hours each day, were actually modified breathing techniques. We manipulated the breath to help us let go of body consciousness and attain higher states of awareness. So all in all, I've got 20 plus years of experience working with the breath on some way, shape, or form to enhance our lives physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so that is really what's in store for you today. You ready for it? All right. I also want to acknowledge all of you. At Rhythmia, we regularly work with big groups, and big groups at this point have been 40 to 80 people. This is a group of 265 people, which I believe is the world's record for transformational breath ever. So you are making history. So don't screw it up. So real quick, to give you an idea of the benefits of this process, physically, oxygen is our number one energy source. And so the process is really to hyperoxygenate, to get abundant amounts of oxygen into our body in a short period of time. That being done, all of our cells work better on oxygen, right? With more oxygen. Our brains think clearer, more concisely. We remember things better. Our muscles are stronger, more resilient, have more endurance. Our organs all do their processes better. Our senses come online a lot more efficiently and effectively. You can perceive the fine nuances of things easier. It helps us detox a lot better. Our number one detoxification mechanism actually is our respiration. So the better we can breathe, the better detoxification we get. And ultimately sleep as well. People who go through this process, especially if you have sleep issues, will report often that tonight you may experience some of the best sleep that you've had in a long time. So I want to get those reports tomorrow morning if that's the case. On an emotional level, this is really doing exactly what Gregg pointed out in his presentation today. We're working with the stored emotional energy, and it's great that we can actually now reference that biologically, that there are these neuropeptides that attach to our cells that then are there. That energy of that emotion continues to agitate our system until we do something about it. So if you've suppressed an emotion, if you've had a trauma in your life that you've blanked out, or repressions, all this kind of stuff, we may think that we're in the free and clear because we're no longer conscious of it. But what we've done is we've stored them in the closet. That closet is the surface of our cells now. All those neuropeptides are there, and they continue to influence us until we do something about it. Has anybody heard of the psychotherapist Sigmund Freud? Yeah, I mention him because he has a quote that says, "Unexpressed emotions never die, they just reemerge in darker and uglier ways." Classic Freud, huh? Dark and ugly. But it's a profound statement because it's true. If we don't take care of this energy when it's happening, and we try to avoid it, it's going to leak out or it's going to build until it finally explodes, in that straw that breaks the camel's back type scenario. So we want to deal with this energy. The most effective way is to siphon it off with, like I use the pressure cooker analogy. The pressure cooker cooks food under pressure, and when there's pressure's too much, a little valve comes up and steam comes out, reduces the pressure back to the adequate amount. It's a great analogy for our lives because we all need pressure to live. A certain amount of pressure, a certain amount of stress is actually good for activating our lives. But too much is, obviously not good. So what is our pressure cooker valve? The breath. So if we can learn to use the breath to help siphon off this excess emotional energy, we can bring down the stress, bring down the pressure, and we can live much more abundant and fulfilled lives. Sound good so far? So then on that spiritual dimension, it's interesting in most languages that the word breath and the word spirit have some sort of synonymous action. For instance, the word spirit in English comes from the Latin root spiritus, which means to breathe. And the word respiration, the act of breathing, actually comes from the root respirare, which means to re-spirit. So if you think about that, the act of respiration is the act of re-spiriting our being. Now, when I first learned this, a whole light bulb went off in my head. I mentioned that I was a monk for 10 years. I didn't even get it in all that time. I always conceived of, here we have a physical body, and then our spirit is kind of a fuzzier, larger version of our body, but more or less static. But when I heard this, it really opened my eyes to this dynamic relationship we have with our spirit, that with each breath we take, we can either welcome spirit in and have a deep, fulfilling relationship with it, or we can be very shallow with our breath and have a very shallow and unfulfilled relationship with our spirit. So I ask you, which one would you like to have? Hopefully the deeper one, right? So as we breathe in, what's going on is we're breathing oxygen, but oxygen is the carrier of prana. Who's heard the term prana before? Yeah, whoa. A lot of yogis out there. Prana, for those who don't know, is simply a Sanskrit word that means life force energy. It's the energy that imbues us with life. It's the intelligent energy that makes us thinking, feeling, mobile beings, differentiating us from a lump of clay. All right, so it's this prana. As we breathe in oxygen, we're actually breathing in more prana. We can almost quantify our relationship with spirit that way. The more prana we bring into this physical field, the more spirit energy is available to us. When this happens, our consciousness begins to align with that higher intelligence. So we tend to, our intuition tends to come online in a stronger way. Our creativity starts to fire on all cylinders, this prana being the energy of creation itself, so we become more creative. And ultimately, we start to feel more connected to ourselves, to our purpose and place on this planet, to others around us, and you may feel a connection between members of the group today, and ultimately a connection to the source or the creator of all of this. So that's just a brief overview of the benefits of what's possible for you as you work with this technique. This is what I call our original medicine. At Rhythmia, we work with plant medicine as well. And we also work with breath medicine. This is the medicine that you don't need to take anything else to still get high on. And for that reason, it is the favorite of many people. So how do we do this process? It's really quite simple. It's called the transformational breath, and I break it down to 3 parts. And those 3 parts, I use 3 words that start with the letter F, and they're nice words, not your typical F words. And that is full, free, and flow. Why don't you say this with me? Full, free, flow. Excellent. And those are just buzzwords, keywords that will hopefully jog your memory to understand what I mean by each of these, which I'm about to explain, so that when you go forward from here and you want to try to emulate this again, which I hope you will do, you'll remember this. So full. Full really talks about, or is about the inhale. The inhale, we want a full inhale. Unfortunately, in the human condition, through all the work that I've done, I've seen that people typically breathe about 20% of our capacity, which means, if oxygen is our number one energy source, we're putting 80% of our potential energy on the table and trying to activate ourselves with only 20% of that. So it's no wonder why you might feel tired by the end of the day, or like life is such a chore, or everything's so hard to do. It's because, it's like trying to go from here to LA on a quarter tank of gas. You're going to run out of energy. So full, we want to take full inhales. We want to get as much oxygen into our bodies in a short period of time as we can. So to do this, we do 2 things differently than we normally do in breathing. One is that we breathe through the mouth. Okay, so breathing through the mouth just allows us to have a wider channel so that we can actually get more air, more oxygen with each breath we take. The second thing that we do is that we breathe at a faster pace. Okay, this faster pace then allows us to process more breaths per minute, again giving us more oxygen ultimately. What we want to do then first is get our breath into the belly, what we call a diaphragmatic breath. At this point, I would like everybody to play along with me. If you put your hands on your belly, open your mouth, pretend that you swallowed a big balloon, all right? And so as you inhale, it's like somebody just blew up that balloon. So your belly should go out as if it's a balloon. As you exhale, the belly flattens and like the balloon deflated. Inhale, the balloon inflates. Exhale, the balloon deflates. Perfect. And to give you an idea of the pace, it's going to be something like very good. So that might be a little faster, a little slower for each of you as an individual, but it's obviously faster than we're breathing in everyday life, okay? So through the mouth, faster pace. We start with the belly, and for the first 5 minutes, that's all we're going to focus on is the belly. But we want this full breath pattern, getting it all the way up. So we're going to add on the chest in what we call a 2-stroke breath. So that's a breath in the belly, a breath in the chest, and then exhale. In, out. Belly, chest, out. In, out. Okay? Now this is just an interim step so that we can still feel the breath going on the belly. We can start to feel the chest getting activated. But ultimately, we want to breathe like we do in normal day life, which is 1 breath in and 1 breath out. So after I see everybody's got that, we're going to merge the 2 breaths together. So no longer 2 breaths, but 1 inhale from belly to chest and exhale. 1 inhale, 1 exhale. And that may feel like a wave-like action, like your belly fills and then your chest, or it may feel like they both move together at the same time. Whatever works for you, whatever you fall into, that is okay. So that's the full, the inhale. Through the mouth, faster paced, start with the belly, ultimately adding on the chest. The second part then is free. Free characterizes the exhale. So the exhale should be free. What I mean by that is it should be relaxed, it should be easeful, graceful, like a gentle sigh, an afterthought. You take this nice full inhale, and it's like, oh yeah, I just got to exhale. It's not, as Gregg was mentioning earlier, it's not like fire breath where you're forcing it. And it's not a controlled breath where you're trying to get rid of every last bit of air. Not like that, okay? Do what I say, not what I do. So full and just a relaxed sigh. What we're doing here is the diaphragm is really this dome-shaped muscle. As you inhale, it contracts and flattens. Now it's like a stretched rubber band. It's got all this potential energy. If you just let go of a rubber band, what would happen? It's just going to go back to its resting shape, right? You don't have to do anything. So it's the same way with the diaphragm. If you just kind of let go, it's going to return to its resting position and push out a little bit of air. So you don't have to be worried about getting out every last bit of air. In fact, for those, somebody in the crowd is always concerned about hyperventilating. And let me tell you that if you do this process right, you're not going to hyperventilate. In fact, in all the 12 years that I've done this work, not once has anybody actually ever hyperventilated. Hyperoxygenating is getting that abundant amount of oxygen in. Hyperventilation is a condition where we expel actually too much carbon dioxide, and that throws off the delicate balance in our system, and we get dizzy and maybe ultimately pass out. So to counter this, if we just take these relaxed exhales, we'll always keep a reserve of carbon dioxide in our system, just the little bit that we need, and we can continue to oxygenate and be in balance. Does that make sense? Okay. I also want to say that the free also ultimately characterizes the breath in its entirety. All the breath should be easeful and graceful. We're really working on letting go of effort completely. When this happens, we call this the state of activation. When you're activated, the breath is moving without your effort. You're putting very little energy into it or no energy at all, and yet the breath is just humming along like this free energy dynamo. Just going and going. All right, that's when the magic starts to happen. So you really access that relaxed state of breath by learning to relax that exhale. All right, so full, free, and finally flow. Now, flow characterizes the relationship between the inhale and the exhale. This process is what we call a circular breath pattern, but there's like square breath pattern, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. There's a triangular breath pattern, inhale, exhale, hold, inhale, exhale, hold, or inhale, hold, exhale. And this is what we call a circular breath pattern. So the circle is inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So a circle has no beginning or end. And in this process, there is no break, no gap between the inhaling and the exhaling. All right? So it's a continuous flow, fluidity, a rhythmic breath pattern. It's this rhythm of the breath that ultimately helps lull us into deeper and deeper trance-like states as well. You can actually set up a frequency with that breath pattern that will take your brain into spaces that will give you some of the interesting effects. So full through the mouth, faster paced, belly to chest, free, nice and relaxed, ease and grace, and flow, fluid, continuous circular breathing, ideally for the entirety of this process. Everybody clear on how we do it? All right. Now, what can you expect to happen? We talk about, at Rhythmia, we talk about 4 different types of journeys that you can have. The first one is going to be a body journey. As you're breathing, what you're doing is you're activating this energy, this stored energy, this latent energy, garbage energy. We're bringing it to the surface to integrate, to release it. In that process, that energy has has a energetic signature, a physiological signature, meaning you're going to feel that energy. At first, typically, you'll feel dizzy and dry mouth. That's usually just conditions of getting used to breathing through your mouth and getting the larger amount of oxygen into your body. That will pass within a couple minutes, so don't worry about it. If your mouth continues to bother you, take a sip of water and just get right back in the process. Don't worry about that too much. Next, you might feel tingling throughout your body, especially concentrated in your hands, your feet, often in your face. That tingling may start to get intense, and it might start to lock up your joints. This is a condition we call tetany, or colloquially we call it T-Rex hands, because you're kind of stuck like this. It's that you might feel very hard to move your joints. You might start to feel very heavy, almost like you're paralyzed, like it's hard to move. On the flip side, you might feel very light, and like your limbs start lifting off the ground. You might feel like you're going to levitate around the room. Nobody's ever done it yet, but I'm holding out for that. You might feel hot. You might feel cold. You might feel both at the same time, and that's why we asked you to bring layers and such. Just know, if you can stay with that, the temperature is actually not changing. Your body temperature is actually not changing. This is the energy. This is the signature of the energy. I know when I get nervous and stressed, I get cold. And so other people get hot when they experience different kinds of emotions. So this is, if you can, your mandate is to feel whatever's coming up physically and allow it to be there and keep breathing with it, okay? So sometimes it's a very comfortable feeling. Sometimes it's kind of an uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes you really like it. Sometimes you don't. Whatever signature it takes on, your mandate is the same. Let it be present. Don't try to push it away. Don't try to avoid it. Let it be present and keep breathing into it. All right, so that's the body journey. The second is the emotional journey. So as this whole workshop is framed, we're releasing these emotional neuropeptides, all this emotional energy. Again, as that comes to the surface and crosses our conscious threshold on the way out, we may temporarily re-experience the emotion that was. So if it was a sad experience in your life, you may feel like crying, and I encourage you to express that emotion. If it was an angry experience, you might feel like pounding and yelling and expressing that anger. Again, please feel free to do so. It may be a happy emotion that comes up. Interestingly, joy is an emotion that we often suppress. Being told to be seen and not heard, or just be quiet and listen. So if you feel like bursting out laughing, allow yourself to feel that. Fears, anxieties, the same thing. So again, whatever you're feeling emotionally, whatever you're feeling physically, the mandate is the same. Allow it to come up, allow it to be present, and keep breathing into it. This is the effectiveness of this process. By keeping the breath flow going, it's going to integrate these different physiological or emotional energies. Then as we move through that and we get relatively clear, you might get what we call the pinta, or the visions. A pinta or a vision is usually in your mind's eye. It could be sacred geometry. It could be swirling psychedelic colors. You might see the faces of saintly figures, totem animals, loved ones that are present or past. You name it, whatever you see is what we call a pinta. And then finally, the fourth journey is the consult, or the consulta, which is when you start getting downloads of information. So it may be that the totem animal that you're seeing all of a sudden starts talking to you, and that will transmit information. You may just get all of a sudden an idea or an answer to a question that you've been struggling with for years, all of a sudden becomes apparent. You may hear a voice talking to you, or it may just come to you in a gentle understanding. Again, if you're getting informational downloads, that's the consult. Okay? So we're working with this process. The whole breath thing, once we actually launch, will take about an hour. Now, during that time, you're working up this energy, and granted, sometimes that physical energy or that emotional energy or both feels a bit strong, and you like to diminish the intensity of that energy. To do this, we have an auxiliary technique we call toning. Toning, as the name implies, is creating a sound, a tone, a vocalized sound. The idea here is that is really a practice in the transformation of energy. Science has even proven now, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it can only be transformed. So what we're doing here is we've got an excess of physical energy or an excess of emotional energy, and we're going to transform it into sonic energy, into sound energy. We do this by, say you feel it strongly in your hands or emotionally in your heart. Feel that, channel it through the vocalized sound, and then as you're toning, you're basically making a sound. You're feeling that energy just disperse out of your body into the room and out into the universe, okay? So toning, will usually, you take a deep breath and for about as long as you can hold your breath. You may incorporate your arms and legs. You can go back to your childlike days and throw a little temper tantrum in your space. This is about the only place you're allowed to do that anymore. But movement, this vocalized sound, and ultimately the breath are our God-given tools for dealing with this energy release. So when we really learn how to use those effectively, about 95% of our issues can go away before we have to go seeking other outside experts. So that's the toning. Now, we're going to, let's see what else I need to say. We have facilitators here. Would the facilitators just stand up for a moment so everybody can see that we've got a group of people that are helping out. Facilitators are here to facilitate your session. In other words, to help you get into the best breathing process possible. And if you want to sit down, you're welcome to. Thank you for making yourselves known. As facilitators, we may come and adjust your position. We may use props like, here we have mouthpieces. These are actual medical devices that you place in your mouth to help you keep your mouth open. If we give you one of those, we'll ask you if you will accept it graciously. If you really don't want it, you don't have to use it, but then we may come around and keep your mouth open. in less than savory ways, maybe. And that we got belly bags, we've got back jacks that, to prop you up. So we've got a whole host of props to help you get into the best position. We also come around and do what's called body mapping. Can you talk a bit more about the body bag? We had some questions. Sure. So with regards to props, another prop is the belly bag, we call them. So these are bags weighted about 10 pounds worth of sand. We put them either on your belly or on your chest, or maybe lengthwise. Basically, they're there to help you have something to breathe against. If sometimes as you're breathing, you don't really feel what you're doing because you're in your breath basically. So when you got that on top of you, all of a sudden you can feel it lifting, and you can give it a little more lift or you can give it a little less lift, either in your belly or your chest. So if we give you one of those, it's to help you gauge how much you're breathing in those areas. Most people really feel good with them. Again, if it's something that you don't resonate with, you don't have to use it. And that's a good place for me to say any of this. If after all this you feel like you don't want to participate in this, you're free to leave. This is an optional part of the program, and voluntary, and including all the props and all the things we do. Now, I was getting into body mapping. Body mapping is more or less acupressure style touch, where we find different parts of the body where the emotion is stored. Now, Gregg went over some of the, male and female, where we typically store emotions and things. We've also discovered through the years of work in transformational breath that we have what's called a body map. And there are typical places where we will store different kinds of energy. For instance, anger will be stored in the shoulders and neck. Like, have you ever heard that phrase, he's such a pain in the neck, right? Do you ever wonder where that came from? It's because when you're angry and you don't express it, you start building up all this tension in your neck. And if you keep that tension there, eventually it turns into pain. And when you see that guy, you feel that pain, and then he's a pain in your neck. So anger can get released from your neck. Fear tends to be around what we call the fear belt, which is this around the rib cage, where the rib cage ends. Guilt and shame will tend to reside in the back, and depending on what you're guilty and shamed about, it'll be upper back or lower back. Sexual issues, will issues, all that, generally down in that lower region. So basically what I'm saying is we're in here finding these points to help release some of this stuck energy. That being said, that's an optional part too. If you don't feel like being touched, or especially if you've got some kind of issue, if you've got a hernia, or you've got stomach issues, or something where we should be very gentle with touching you or not touch you at all, just let us know. We are happy to respect your wishes, okay? It is really effective in helping you move through some of these energies, but if it's not for you or you've got some condition where it wouldn't be good, let us know, all right? I think we're coming upon close to the end. What we're going to do, the last thing is about positioning. Basically, most of you are going to lie down flat. We may come around and prop some of you up depending on your breathing pattern. Those in the back who are against the wall, may choose to sit against the wall. And of course, those in the chairs are going to be breathing sitting up. Please turn off your electronics, at least the sound of your electronics. And mine's not here. The last thing we're going to do before getting into it is to set an intention. This work and the work that I do is based very much in intentionality, meaning the more intentional we can be about what we're after, what we're desiring, what we can focus on, the more that energy starts to magnetically be drawn in that direction. Your intention is like a magnetic spearhead, which then takes the energy with it towards where you want to go. So I'd invite at this point everybody to get in position, to lay back. So at this point, I invite you to lie back in your spaces, to get comfortable, to close your eyes, and just take a deep breath in, and then just let it all go. Maybe take another deep breath in, and just let it all go. Now, just like Gregg was telling you today, we can communicate with our heart. I want you to tune into your heart. Just be breathing in and out as if you're breathing in and out of your heart. And just feel the energy there at your heart center. And then ask in that same manner, my heart, what is your intention for me in this session? My heart, what is my intention? What is your intention for me in this session today? Let your heart speak to you. Let the energy of your heart inform you of what it is you're here to do, what it is you're here to accomplish, what great things are here for you to manifest, what things are here for you to release and let go of forever. And so with this intention in your heart, I want you to open your mouth and breathe into that belly like a big balloon. And then just let it go. Inhale into your belly and let it go. Great. Inhale into the belly and let it go. And then we're going to begin to breathe a little bit faster. Good. I call now upon the I Am presence and higher self of each individual here to manifest the highest possibilities for the perfect breathing session under grace. Perfect alignment with the God presence, perfect integration of all suppressions, perfect acceptance of all good, and perfect remembrance. I Am presence, higher selves, angelic forces of light, and great masters, be present with us to guide, inspire, and move us forward on this perfect breathing journey. I thank you that it is done, for the call compels the answer. We're just breathing into the belly. Take a deep breath together and start making some noise. Ready? Go ahead and use your body if you want to move. Let that sound out. All right, and whenever you're done, you go right back into the breath. So you tone, then you go back into the breathing. In and out, to know that you can use the toning anytime you need to from this point forward. So don't worry if nobody else is toning, you can make noise.